good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Rob Powell. I head up the Pro Bono and Corporate Responsibility practice at Weil. I also had the pleasure of chairing a fantastic trailblazer group to develop this very cool and exciting new apprenticeship. Thank you for tuning in. We've got over 100 people have tuned in and about 260 people who registered. So we've got a good community of employers across the country who are already interested in the CRS apprenticeship. We've got a lot to get through in the next 45 minutes. And as you can see, I'm joined by a brilliant panel who will introduce themselves very shortly. Before we do that, I just wanted to provide a very brief overview of the CRS apprenticeship and also the Sustainable50. So let me just share with you some slides just for a few minutes. Let me just get these up now. And while I do this, I'd just like to make it clear that we wholeheartedly encourage questions from the audience. So if you've got any questions at any point throughout, please do submit them through the Q&A function. Hopefully you can see these slides. So just to start off with the important stuff, if you want to tweet or post anything on social media, you can see the Twitter handles for the organisations involved in our campaign on screen. And it is also National Apprenticeship Week, which is the perfect time for us to launch this new apprenticeship. And so the hashtags are on the screen. And the theme for National Apprenticeship this year is Build the Future. So let me just quickly talk you through. So the apprenticeship has been approved by the Institute for Technical Education and Apprenticeships. We're just waiting on ministerial approval of the funding band, which should happen imminently, in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And once that happens, then it will be ready and live for employers across the country, and employers can start to recruit their apprentices. It's important to remember that this apprenticeship is possible, so any business in any industry of any size can take on a CRS apprentice. And the Trailblazer Group worked really hard to deliberately develop the occupational standard and the knowledge, skills and behaviours to ensure it is portable and can be applied in a law firm, in a food business, in a pharma company. It's also inclusive. A lot of people don't realise that anyone can become an apprentice. So like all other apprenticeships, the CRS apprentice can be anyone over the age of 16, and that includes existing employees in other occupations who may wish to transfer into a CRS role. So you may well have colleagues at your business who might be interested in this. The apprentice will spend 20% of their time in off-the-job training, and we have 3 apprenticeship providers so far, and we expect more to enter the market once this is formally launched. 100% of the training costs can be covered via your apprenticeship levy, and if you are a small business, you can access levy via programs like Reskilling the Recovery, which we'll talk to you about today. Also, if you are a business without an existing CRS function, hiring an apprentice could be a viable first step to developing one. So, the apprentice could sit within marketing or HR or PR or L&D, so you don't necessarily have to have an existing CRS team. And all apprentices, thanks to the ICRS, will have free membership and access to their wealth of events, webinars, and materials. So this is great. And to launch the apprenticeship, the Trailblazer Group has joined forces with Heart of the City, ICRS, and the London Progression Collaboration to launch the Sustainable50, which basically it isn't really a thing. It's not an entity as such. It's just a kind of campaign, just to kind of garner interest. And our aim is to get 50 CRS apprentices in 2021. That's the overarching objective. Also, we want to raise awareness of CRS as a viable career option for young people, but also for more employers to invest in a CRS function. If we can achieve our goal of getting 50 apprentices this year, then what we've done is we've COVID-proofed this apprenticeship, so all of the off-the-job training can be delivered virtually, and so we can replicate the kind of university experience for apprentices by that blended learning experience. They can all learn and grow together. We'd also like to kind of widen access to the CRS profession by encouraging employers to advertise their vacancies to people from working class or underrepresented backgrounds. And then supporting SMEs, so encourage large employers to transfer part of their unused levy to an SME so they too can take on CRS Apprentice. And then if we achieve all of this, if all of this works, then we'd love to celebrate and communicate the efforts of our apprentices via social media campaigns or events in the future. And so the 3 asks for the Sustainable50, one of them is conditional, which is to recruit a CRS apprentice in 2021. That's the main thing. And then the 2 other asks are optional, one of which is to transfer part of your levy, and you can find out more about that shortly. And then number 3 is to widen access to the profession, so utilising your existing relationships with charities or schools and open up the vacancies to people from underrepresented backgrounds. So that's what it is. That's where we are. So on that, let me just stop sharing and come back to the group. So thank you for that. And people are still tuning in. Amazing, fantastic. There's about 150 people tuned in. Brilliant. So we're now going to move on to our panel discussion. So can I just ask the panel to introduce themselves?
Hi, Rob. Thank you for that. Hi, my name's Sam Healy. I'm Director of Corporate Responsibility and Sustainability at Kinetic, and I'm also on the board of the ICRS, the Institute of Corporate Responsibility and Sustainability.
Thank you, Sam.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Fozia Parveen. I'm Group Head of Social Value at ISG. ISG is a global construction fit-out company. We have specific sector areas that we cover, which include offices, technology, science and health, retail, hospitality, education, public sectors. We have offices ranging from the Far East, Middle East, Europe and the UK. And my involvement on the panel today is I was part of the Trailblazer group.
Everybody, my name's Anna Ambrose. I'm Director of the London Progression Collaboration. We are a pilot initiative working in London to increase the number of apprenticeships available to low-skilled and low-paid Londoners. So we work specifically with businesses to support them to create those apprenticeship opportunities.
Great. And hi, I'm Andy Melia. I'm the Director of Heart of the City. We're a charity that supports small businesses to build the foundations of their responsible business strategy. We've got a 2-year partially funded programme, and we work with SMEs broadly across London, but with a particular focus on the City of London, Camden, Islington and Southwark. And I'm here today because apprenticeships are a great opportunity for SMEs to engage a new workforce and build skills and knowledge into their business. And just as much, I think, to highlight the fact that there's actually money out there for SMEs to access these through levy transfer. So really kind of great opportunity for SMEs to bring that skill into the business.
Thank you very much, Andy, and thank you to our panel. So let's dive in to the first question. The questions actually from the audience are flooding in, so we'll come to those at the end, and we'll try and categorise them so we can cover off as many as possible. So let's start with you, Sam. With your ICRS hat on, what does this new apprenticeship mean for the CRS profession?
I think responsible and sustainable business practice is just growing in importance across organisations. And so it's really exciting to see a new entry route into the CRS career. And I think this is a milestone in the maturity of the profession. It's been fantastic to see such a diverse range of businesses involved in developing the apprenticeship, because I think it really then, as you say, demonstrates that it's that transferability, and it isn't just, applies to one sector, but it can apply all over the place. And I think that's going to to be so important, because it's such a broad role, and I think it needs to be really tailored to both the organisation and also the sector. I think additionally, it's just so positive to attract new and diverse talent into the profession. When people join from different routes, they bring different perspectives, and I think that's incredibly powerful for an organisation. So I think we all know this: when we bring someone new into our organisation, we get those fresh perspectives. So it's great for an organisation, but I think it would also be fantastic for the sector. Sustainability is a big societal challenge, and it's a shared endeavour that us as a community of professionals work together. So it will be of benefit to organisations, but it will be of benefit to the community of professionals as well. I think what's lovely about what we're proposing here is that cohort of apprentices who can learn together. So obviously we're in a world where it's quite virtual at the moment. So that piece around taking 50 people together to operate as a cohort. And I think, through ICRS, one of the key things for us is around that network, how important your network is at all stages of your career, when you're starting out, but also as you go through the profession. So absolutely that cohort approach. And I think connecting to the ICRS and offering that membership to those that take up the apprenticeship, again, is a real opportunity for access to the networks, the webinars, the mentoring program, and so on. So ICRS, we're just delighted to see this programme.
Brilliant, Sam. Thank you for that. Let's bring you in, Anna, on apprenticeships, because since the levy was introduced, apprenticeships have had a bit of a renaissance, I guess. And at the LPC, you've launched Reskilling the Recovery. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, sure. So I might just start off with a kind of 30-second definition of apprenticeships to reiterate some of the points you made in your introduction, Rob, just to make sure we're all kind of starting from the same place. So an apprenticeship is a job with training, and that means that an apprentice spends most of their time learning by doing their job with their employer, and that's part of the real power of apprenticeship opportunities. So 20% of their time is spent in that off-the-job training, which is delivered by an apprenticeship training provider. Apprenticeships are available from level 2 right through to level 7, so not just for entry-level jobs, which I think is often one of the kind of myths that we need to overcome. Also really, really powerful tool for upskilling and reskilling existing employees. And as we've said, they're absolutely not just for young people. Obviously, creating employment opportunities for young people at the moment is something that's really vital, but apprenticeships can be for people of any age, and we've also got real needs to look at how we're kind of reskilling and equipping people for careers of the future as well. So at the LPC, as I said in my introduction, we support businesses of all sizes to create new apprenticeship opportunities with a focus on low-paid Londoners. And we do that for two reasons, really. So one is to help address challenges around progressing in work, where we know there are real barriers for people who perhaps enter the workforce in low-paid work and really struggle to get those opportunities to progress. And there's a really strong link there within work poverty, which is obviously a huge challenge. And many people will only escape in work poverty by being able to secure a higher skilled role rather than by kind of receiving pay rises in their existing roles. And the other reason why we do what we do is, the really profound skill shortages that businesses experience right across sectors. I think, we tend to hear about digital skills, but, skill shortages are just as prevalent across the construction sector, across the care sector. And I think those kind of issues around skill shortages can sound a little bit abstract. But I think, they affect things that we all care about. So, whether we have the skills to build greener houses and address the climate crisis, whether we have the skills in the care sector to, give our children the care that we want to in nurseries and give perhaps elderly parents the care that they deserve in care homes. So, those issues are things that I think we all really care about ultimately. And Reskilling the Recovery is our response to the pandemic. We launched the campaign in June last year. And the campaign asks levy-paying employers to pledge some of their unspent levy funds to the campaign, which we can then facilitate the transfer of those funds to small businesses, which covers the full cost of apprenticeship training and support for those businesses. And we felt, and the employers that we're working with have clearly kind of echoed this, that, that is a really important way through levy transfer to support small businesses to access the skills that they need to survive this really challenging period, to adapt to new ways of working in many businesses, and hopefully to recover from the pandemic when we get to a point where we're kind of thinking about economic recovery. And it's also a really vital opportunity to create those apprenticeship opportunities for low paid Londoners to develop the skills that they need to progress. And I think for me it's something really powerful that we don't need to wait for government policy change to do this. We don't need to wait for Rishi Sunak to tell us that we can do something different. It's something that as a business community we can come together to do right now and kind of leverage the power that we have. So we've had over £3.5 million pledged to that campaign since June, working with over 30 levy paying businesses, including American Express, Amazon, Royal Mail, BT, who kind of share that commitment to our mission. And we've had really substantial requests for that funding from small businesses as well, of over £3 million. And all that is creating those opportunities that people really need at the moment. And so I think, the Sustainable50 is a great opportunity for levy paying organisations to help small businesses to access this fantastic new apprenticeship standard, with us there to kind of support that process and be able to facilitate it as we have been doing with other businesses. And in terms of the standard, I think kind of widening that pool of talent working in this area is something that feels really kind of aligned for us. The kind of breadth of people with different life experiences, etc., making decisions around business priorities in this area is something that's really important.
Brilliant, Anna. Thank you for that. And just kind of staying on SMEs, Andy, let's bring you in because obviously at Heart of the City, and I've got the honour of being a trustee of Heart of the City as well, and you work with lots of small businesses around CRS that don't necessarily have a CRS function. How can SMEs benefit by taking on a CRS apprentice?
I was going to say, in many ways, Sam and Anna have kind of answered the question for me, if I'm honest. It's I think it's very much that the reality for a lot of SMEs is this is an important area they want to focus, but they don't have the resource in the same way some of the larger corporates do to have a dedicated person. It's often done on the side of one or a number of people's desks, essentially. And so the apprenticeship can kind of offer a dedicated resource to help to kind of bring that all together within a business. And I mean, I think that very fact that the breadth of it covers so much of what an organisation does. I mean, kind of corporate responsibility in itself is very much the integral to everything that the business does and where it acts, how it functions. So it can really help to kind of create that cross-business approach and stitch it all together and provide some support and resource and essentially have some of that funding sitting there available to help a small business do that. And there's also that kind of question around talent, the future as well, kind of that future-proofing piece. I mean, we talked about apprenticeship being kind of very much they're available to anyone, but there's also the reality of we've got a generation coming out of school, university right now who are facing some exceptional challenges, and at the same time they're a generation for whom the sustainability and responsibility is fundamentally important. I mean, Deloitte kind of very much have been talking about the fact that businesses need to be ahead of the game in considering diversity and how responsible you are to be able to attract talent for the future. So this is a real kind of opportunity to enable access to employment for people in kind of Gen Z and enable them to contribute to that work, but also a really interesting kind of route to actually understanding a business. That kind of cross-business approach enable kind of a 3-year apprenticeship would enable you to build a real kind of depth of knowledge of a business and then find potentially a route into a particular area of the business that you might then take a long-term role in, but with a grounding in corporate responsibility. And for me, that's kind of the profession is important, but building that appreciation of good, responsible business into everyday operational roles is really the way we're going to really transform business in the long term. So embedding that knowledge and skill in an apprentice, but then moving them into an operational role of some kind could be a really powerful benefit to this. And just to kind of re-echo what Sam said as well, just the cross-sector learning element and the network building, I think is going to be SMEs often are kind of quite focused on what they do, and so actually having team members who are able to build those networks with multiple other businesses at the same time as they're learning and developing in their career with you is just kind of opens up new opportunities.
Brilliant, Andy. So lots of benefits to SMEs there for taking on a CRS apprentice and taking advantage of the levy transfer scheme. So let's bring you in, Fozia, because at ISG you've got a long track record of taking on apprentices, and you've also transferred part of your levy to Reskilling the Recovery. How have apprentices benefited your business, and how easy was it to kind of sign up to Reskilling the Recovery?
Yeah, thanks, Rob. So at ISG, we have an early careers talent program. I know Andy mentioned the word talent, and we have a talent program. And under that program, we have a suite of interventions, which includes graduates, which includes industrial placement, and it includes apprenticeships. And this program was highly commended externally in 2019. We achieved 37th best graduate employer and 47th best apprentice employer in the Jobs Crowd top listings companies ratings. So in terms of our track record, it's a really good one internally and externally, and it's been recognised. Currently within ISG, we have around 79 apprentices within our business unit, working across 18 different occupations, which include quantity surveying, joinery, facilities management and finance. And out of those 79 apprentices currently in the business, 61 of those are currently studying at level 6 or higher, and the rest on the lower levels. So really high level apprentices within the business. In terms of transferring part of our levy, Anna's probably touched on a lot of this already, but when in June 2020, Reskilling the Recovery was launched, and it asked London's large employers to pledge some of our unspent apprenticeship levy. For us at ISG, it felt like the right thing to do. We knew that by pledging some of our unspent levy to support small businesses was going to really help support and access those businesses the skills and training that they really needed. But also it was about allowing an apprenticeship to create that new opportunity for a Londoner to build their skills and progress into work. So it was actually a no-brainer for us to sort of get involved, and it was quite straightforward. They got in touch with us, sent us the details of a small business that fitted within our industry, and we knew that apprenticeship levy that we were going to transfer was going to support that directly, that small business. So it was absolutely no-brainer for us. In terms of our current taking on of apprenticeships this year, under the aspiration of Paul Cassell, our CEO, we have decided to double the intake of apprenticeships as well as graduates and industrial placements this year, which is fantastic. And I think it's it's really needed in the industry now, and also because of what's been going on, it's really key that we can bring in a real diverse team of people to come into the business. And we're not going to just look at sort of construction related opportunities for these apprenticeships. We are going to diversify into other roles, looking at marketing, communications, IT, HR, for example. So this particular apprenticeship can fit into one of those roles really easily. And so we feel that, I've got an apprentice in my team, and having somebody from an apprentice background, it's a really good way of getting a fresh pair of eyes into the business. They've got some really innovative ideas. They've got creative and constructive thinking that I feel that is the only way that we as a business can evolve for the better.
Brilliant, Fozia. I completely agree about the energy and new ideas, and I can't wait to recruit our CRS apprentice at a while. Actually, I'm really excited about it. Brilliant, Fozia. So Sam, let's just go back to you for a second. And what do you consider because the Trailblazer group, just for context, we had great fun in just kind of really going back to basics on what it means to be a CRS practitioner. What are the core competencies of a CRS practitioner? And we had great fun thinking about that and mapping that out in the early stages of this process. So for you, Sam, what are those competencies, and what skills can an apprentice bring to an existing CRS function?
Thank you. And I know, having looked at the standard, one of the things that really struck me when you read the standard is this is not a routine office job. And I just think that encapsulates just the breadth and fun that a CRS job is. So the ICRS has a framework that looks at those key skills and competencies. And I know that was the sort of something that you really, really used as part of the Trailblazer group. And I think the way that we've divided it up is really to think about that core knowledge you need as a professional. And it sits in there, how do you want to run your business and what does your business want to do? And, that applies equally to an organisation, which is, what is your purpose? What are you actually achieving? And so those key themes around ethics, around society and around environment are those big areas of knowledge that we need as professionals to know. And honestly, it's a rapidly moving landscape. So the things that, I started in my career 14 years ago, it's moved on quite a lot. So there's new learning all the time. So those are the sort of the core knowledge areas. And I think in underpinning that is really your purpose of organisation, is your value chain, is, how do you buy, what do you sell, what do you make, what do you do? And thinking about all of those in a responsible framework is your knowledge basis. And then sitting around that are the skills that you'll need, and they are quite unique to the profession. So there's quite a lot of influencing. That's probably one of the core skills that you'll need, but also reporting and planning and strategy and research. So there's some a real breadth of skills that come to make up the whole professional. But I think all of us as panelists have touched on this, is that each job is unique and each organisation will have the scope to find what they really need and take that apprentice to leverage the strengths of what they need in their business and play within this framework, which I think is fantastic. And I think Andy really touched on it there, which is around, even, some organisations will have a number of full-time CRS roles, but actually many of the functions and roles that we have in organisations need that basic CRS knowledge to inform them. It's whether they sit in the property department or whether in the governance department or so on. So the scope of what this apprenticeship can do to build skills and knowledge. And I think I'd just like to build on what Fozia was saying there around, if you bring an apprentice into your organisation, they bring that fresh thinking, those fresh perspectives. And I think if you have that culture where you're listening to new ideas, you can just innovate and grow. But also I think you'll know as a more experienced professional, is when you are taking someone on the journey of learning in a new profession, you grow yourself. So as you're teaching people on the job, you grow and you develop your own skills. As you mentor people, you grow as well. So I think it's just a win-win, really.
Brilliant, Sam. I mean that was one of the things which we did. We had great fun in doing that. But also, CRS is a unique role, really, and it is going to be very different in a law firm to what it is in a pharma business or a food business. So trying to kind of have that framework which can be applied in different industries was a challenge, but I think we got that in the end. The questions are flooding in from the audience. Fantastic. We're going to come to them shortly. Let's bring Anna in just on reskilling the recovery. What does a business have to do in practical terms to sign up and transfer part of their levy?
Right, so I've been told that I make this sound disconcertingly straightforward, but hopefully what Fozia said kind of will reassure everybody that is the case. And I think, having organisations out there like us to kind of help you do some of the heavy lifting can really make this very straightforward. So first step is to, work with the person who's responsible for your apprenticeship levy to find out if you have an underspend, and if so, how much it is. And I think the way I would recommend thinking about that is essentially looking at what you're paying into the apprenticeship levy each month, what your business is using each month, and then what is expiring each month, and thinking about whether your own business needs are likely to increase or decrease over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, etc. So really to kind of understand what that profile of your own levy spend looks like now and in the future, and therefore how much is there in terms of an underspend, which if you don't do anything else with it is just going to expire. And then, I think the next step is around thinking about what priorities are for your transferred funds. And, an initiative like the Sustainable50 is a fantastic way to kind of focus what you might do with some of those funds. But you know, those are conversations we're having with businesses all the time around kind of linking to their own CRS agenda, linking to particular skill shortages that affect their sector, you know, linking perhaps to particular communities that they work with or want to be able to support in a really more effective way. So lots of ways to think about that. And then really it's finding someone to transfer to. And I think, you know, that can be for businesses where the challenge comes in that, you know, you've got your funds, but actually how do you go about telling other people that you'd like to use them to support them to take on apprentices? And that's where we've found that, you know, even some really large business have kind of tried and failed a little bit with apprenticeship levy transfer. And that's where, you know, we do the heavy lifting really, is to find where those businesses are who are ready to take on an apprentice, but for whom that funding is potentially a really significant barrier. And then in terms of the kind of dreaded digital apprenticeship service, which I think fills lots of people with trepidation, actually it is a really simple process on the AS. You send a connection request from the levy donor business to the business who's going to receive funds. That employer and their provider add all the details of the apprenticeships, and then it comes back to you as the levy donor employer to make sure that that's it, what they've put there is what you were expecting to support, and just to kind of click the final approval button, and the funds to support that apprenticeship or those apprenticeships then exit your account on a monthly basis, just as they would be with your own apprenticeships.
Brilliant, Anna. So pretty straightforward. Fantastic. Thank you, Anna. Andy, just on going back to SMEs, because you know we've discussed the kind of turbulent economy, and you know you can argue why you know a smaller business might not necessarily prioritize you know CRS or responsible business activities. Why is it more important than ever for SMEs to continue and further their commitment to CRS?
I mean, it's a great question, and I think kind of basically comes down to the fact that actually responsible business is simply good business. We've kind of seen that, I think, demonstrated far more than ever through the pandemic. The themes that have come out about employee well-being, engaging your community, responding to kind of health challenges, are all really core responsible business concepts, and actually they've now become front and centre to how businesses absolutely have to think to survive, essentially. And I mean, as we look to the future and kind of the climate emergency, that's only going to become more and more of a priority and a reality for businesses. So having this thinking front and centre, and kind of touching on what Sam said in terms of then making sure that that fits within the very core and purpose of who you are as an organisation, and then how your organisation flows from that, is really going to be essential, I think, for business continuity as over the next 3, 5, 10 years, as we start to come out of the challenges from the pandemic and hopefully enter recovery. And there's that actually a real kind of hard-nosed business opportunity here. I mean, the Business and Sustainable Development Commission kind of estimate that kind of addressing the Sustainable Development Goals, for example, provide a 12 trillion opportunity for business globally. I mean, that's business everywhere, but kind of there's a slice of the pie there for everyone to access. And so, I mean, we've actually seen that kind of doing good actually means doing well. And I mean, we talk about caring for your employees in the pandemic, that's actually enabled businesses to keep functioning. And we talked earlier about the need of thinking through future skills and actually engaging with younger and in particularly underrepresented people to enter your workforce. So it's that real kind of future proofing of who you are and how you function. And I mean, we know that actually works in terms of winning business as well. David Miller Architects, who are one of our members, frequently talk about the fact that their social value work has opened up conversations with other businesses and actually resulted in new business opportunities for them. So it's kind of very much provides a route into financing your business. But I always like to focus on that, but also then bring it back to that human element as well. And I can't, I guess, emphasize this enough in the last year, like that employee, the kind of the health and well-being of your employees and how important that remains. Without employees, no business can function, and that's even more critical for SMEs when you're reliant on less people. You don't have the kind of same amount of slack in the system, as it were, for others to pick things up. And so actually kind of being responsible and empowering employees through that builds that kind of trust and enables you to get the best out of them, because you're caring for them and making them part of your, like, an essential part of your workforce. And that's just essential now, and will kind of continue to be even more essential in the next few years as we drive out the recovery.
Fantastic, Andy. So lots of reasons for SMEs to use this apprenticeship to continue and further that commitment to a sustainable future. Brilliant, Andy. We're going to go to the last question now, and then we're going to come to questions from the audience, which Jack has very kindly categorised. Thank you, Jack. So Fawzia, just to end with a question for you, because you were, of course, part of the Trailblazer group, which developed this. So thank you very much for your contributions. Just very briefly, how did you find the experience of being part of the Trailblazer group and kind of developing this apprenticeship?
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Well, first of all, I was delighted to be asked to be part of the Trailblazer group. It was going to be a great opportunity to work with you again, Rob, and and some of my other peers in the banking sector and all the different groups that were part of it. But when I joined, I thought I'd be able to give so much of my experience in CSR to the group, and that was great. But I had absolutely no idea the amount of time and dedication and commitment that it required to get this apprenticeship together. I mean, there was just so much work, and it wasn't that it was a bad thing. It was actually really good that I was able to be challenged. I think a lot of the Trailblazer groups, I think we felt challenged in trying to understand what all the duties were, what the knowledge, skills and behaviours required for each of those duties. And I think in terms of being able to give something back to that group and build this CSR apprenticeship, I think for my personal journey, I think I actually learned through my own personal learning and development. So I was really pleased, but it was a lot of work, but it was great. It was really good.
Thank you, Fawzia. So thank you very much, everybody. We're conscious of time. We've got about 6 minutes left, and we've had lots of questions through, which we've put into kind of buckets. And so we'll go through those now. There has been a lot of questions about training providers and who they are, and whether we've got an endpoint assessment organisation. So after this event, hopefully tomorrow or Friday, you will receive an email which will set out, kind of attach the slides to this session, all of the documents you've got so far, as well as the 3 training providers and the endpoint assessment organisation. So we do have all of that in place, and we can provide key contacts for those as well. So you will get that. So the first bucket of questions, and I'll read this out, and then maybe if one of the panelists wants to add anything. Can this apprenticeship opportunity be used for existing employees, members of staff, as well as new starters? How about someone completely new to the profession? Sam, I don't know if you want to briefly respond to that.
I think that's the beauty of apprenticeships. I think there's a misconception that they're just for young people starting their career, and actually they're a fantastic route for reskilling in organisations. And I think for all of us, knowing that opportunity there for reskilling is brilliant. And what's so powerful, of course, is because it's on the job, so you don't have to take time out and leave and go away to university, do 3 years and come back. But you're there delivering your job and actually learning at the same time. So I think it's a fabulous solution, and I think many companies have great examples of where they've done that for their own colleagues as well. So absolutely,
of course. And this is just to build on what Sam said. You may well have colleagues who would love to get into CRS. So it's an ideal way to upskill and do that kind of lateral across sideways move. The second bucket is what types of roles is the training suitable for within a business? Would it be useful for those roles with an operational function that want to develop their understanding of sustainability? Another a great question. Again, I wonder whether Sam, you could touch upon that.
So it depends slightly on the organisation, but I think that the beauty of the way that the framework's been created is that it will provide all options. So depending on the size of the organisation, you may have large functions which need someone who either is a full-time CRS person or will have some of those scopes of expertise. So I think that flexibility is there, as it can support any of those functions.
Thank you, Sam. And then I think Andy, this. I mean, we've kind of covered this, but a bucket of questions around how suitable is the training for maybe CRS consultancy organisations as well as SMEs. And I think we've covered this, but for SMEs, Andy, I don't know if you wanted to add anything that hasn't already been said.
I mean, I think just to echo the point, the beauty of it is its flexibility. It's being able to apply it to your own business, the structure, the kind of needs that you have. And I think that's the framework has been designed in such a way that actually it makes it accessible. It will take a bit of time, obviously, to work that through of what that means for your business. But that's the joys of having the Sustainable50. Anna and the team is to help you do that, but I think it's there, it's accessible for everyone, and that's what makes it really powerful.
Thank you, Andy. Conscious of time now, but just to say that if we haven't answered your question, apologies, but like I said, you will get a pretty long, comprehensive follow-up email with all of the information that we've provided today through this session, including, reskilling the recovery, details on the ICRS, the apprenticeship, the Sustainable50, how to sign up. We are going to issue a very brief survey monkey just to gauge level of interest in recruiting an apprentice, and so that will be included in the email, as well as the list of training providers, the endpoint assessment organisation. So get ready to read a long email. And also it will have a link to the recording of this session, which I believe is going to be uploaded onto Heart of the City's YouTube channel. So thank you, Andy and the team, for that. Thank you very much to our fantastic panelists. Thank you to Jack for helping with all of the questions. And sorry if we didn't get to answer some of the really specific ones, but we will do that in the follow-up. But thank you all very much. Take care and stay safe.